Assalamualaikum. Welcome to Expert Insights, organized by MCOB, which stands for Allied Muslim Chamber of Business. MCOB is a membership-based social enterprise with a mission to create a thriving Muslim business community. It's the power of collective wisdom, continued learning, and thought leadership brought together for Muslims by Muslims. Our core belief is that business leaders thrive when they have access to a supportive community of peers who challenge and inspire each other. Today, our guest is Ahmed Mahmood. Ahmed at Wakil Wealth Advisory, and we'll be covering navigating Sharia-compliant investing in modern times. Welcome, Ahmed.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay. All right. So, would love to learn about the Sharia compliant, and just if you can give a brief overview of what it is.
Absolutely. So, Sharia-compliant investing is um, investments in permissible activities and assets, and as Muslims, we're urged to engage in productive economic activities to generate wealth, rather than simply accumulating cash. And in the investment universe here in the United States, where it was and where it is today, and given the opportunities in the halal economy, now more than ever, there are investment vehicles and solutions available to the Muslim population that allows them to invest along with their values and views to achieve the desired goals.
Okay. Can you provide some examples of conventional finance and Sharia compliant finance?
Yeah, absolutely. So conventional finance, or let me start off with Sharia compliant investments. Sharia compliant investments typically prohibits several industries. And those industries, just by way of example, is alcohol, gambling, tobacco, defense, and so forth. And then also a couple of other things that Sharia compliant investments move away from is interest, or also known as riba, gambling, and also uncertainty or speculation. Conventional finance will typically take all of that into consideration, right? And then when it comes to us as Muslims, Sharia compliant investments typically will take our views and values into considerations. So when you look under the hood of these investments, you're not going to see alcohol, gambling, tobacco, or defense companies or as holdings in these portfolios. And then most importantly, a lot of these Sharia compliant funds that are out there, they have several audit committee members. And those audit committee members tend to be Sharia scholars to make sure that they're in line with the Sharia principles of finance. And they're the ones that are signing off and offering certificate of authenticity of their investment thesis.
Okay. How many such organizations are there to provide those certifications?
There are several of them, and most of them are based out of countries like Qatar, Dubai, Malaysia, and so forth. But from an investment vehicle perspective, and now more than ever, I remember when I first got in the business, the name that used to resonate was Amana Funds. They were one of the pioneers of Sharia
Yep.
compliant investment management. But now there are so many out there. There's several asset management companies called Azad Asset Management. There's
Mhm.
Amana. There's Sharia portfolios, and so many more to add onto that. But to answer your question, there's several out there, and the opportunity just continues to grow more and more in this space.
Okay. All right. And how much do you have any perspective on the how the market this market is growing? How much is the demand among Muslims?
I would say when we look at from a halal economy perspective, right? I
Mhm.
think there was a research that was done out there that the halal economy, particularly across the globe, is going to grow by $6 trillion. And when you think of that, now more than ever, considering the social circumstances across the globe, more and more Muslims are wanting to invest with their values, considering, when I first started in this business again, where we are with particularly Amana advisors, now you have Wahid and all these other players that are coming into the community. I think the demand is going to continue to grow more and more. And we see that not only here in the United States, but also in the GCC countries and all the other Muslim countries out on the other side of the world. So I think the demand is going to continue to grow and more,
Mhm.
especially given the today's circumstances, both socially and politically.
Okay. And 6 trillion is definitely a huge market
Mhm.
for the, like with any way we look at it. So, what are the key principles that are used in order to define the alignment of investments with Sharia guidelines?
Um, I mean, look, I'm not a religious scholar by any means, but when you look at the screening that they use, right? They will take a look at the underlying holdings, and then when they start going to the underlying holdings, they will do a deeper dive. They will do a top to bottom approach view of their overall financials, and there's
Hmm.
several criteria to make sure that it passes the spell test. A couple of things that come to mind is, what is the business in? What do they do? What kind of value do they provide? They look at it subjectively, and then when they start looking at it objectively, they make sure that do they have a lot of debt on their books, right? Or are they engaged in prohibited activities? And when you look at some of these DIY or do-it-yourself investors who want to use resources such as like Musafa and all the other Sharia compliant investment screeners that are out there, they do some of that work for you. But for
Okay.
those who are looking for a solution where you're trying to grow your wealth, but you do not have the time to go through the screening process or to be able to do a lot of the homework that's involved in investment management, there's a
Hmm.
lot of these Sharia compliant investment vehicles that are out there for investors to be able to park their money in and let the managers of those asset or of those investment vehicles do the work for you.
Okay. All right. We hear about the investment vehicles, and so how do we structure those investments to adhere to Islamic law?
Great question. I have been speaking to a lot of Muslim investors as of recently, and one of the things that I want to bring up is you're starting to see exuberance in the market, and what that means is that there's a lot of excitement, particularly in the various different asset classes, very much so in real estate and private equity, and we have seen that. But if you're watching some of the news and some of the articles that are coming out, in fact, Bloomberg put out an article yesterday. You could see that liquidity is starting to dry up, and that's because of what's going on in the economy, right? The Fed is pulling back and injecting liquidity and so forth.
Hmm.
And as particularly as investors and even as Muslim investors, when we look at putting investments together, we want to look at it from a broad-based lens where we are taking into risks from various different degrees, right? And the ones that we want to take a look at is like liquidity, concentration risk, reinvestment risk, and so forth. Because as we've seen time and time over again, whether it's the financial crisis of the 2000s or the Nasdaq bubble,
Hmm.
or even in the 1987 crash, right? You do not want to have all of your wealth concentrated in one particular asset class.
Hmm.
Where if the music does stop and people are racing to their chairs, you don't want to be the one that doesn't have a chair to sit on. In terms of structuring investment portfolios, you want to look at it through the lens of what's called asset allocation. And through asset allocation, you define what does your risk appetite and how much you want to have certain assets deployed in the different in those different asset classes. So, for example, and this is just very generally speaking,
Yep.
but for somebody who's, let's just say, a 40-year-old individual looking to invest, generally
Hmm.
speaking, you can take the number 100 and subtract it by 40, and that gives you 60, right? So for somebody who's at the age of 40, and again, this is just generally speaking, their asset allocation is where 60% should be in equities, and the remaining 40% should be between alternatives and fixed income. Luckily, or fortunately for us Muslims, where Muslims or where Sharia compliant investments were and where they are today, you can holistically create a portfolio that's completely Sharia compliant that allows you to meet the objectives of those various different asset classes. So there is Sharia compliant investment vehicles in equities, in fixed income, and in the alternative space. So to answer your question, when you are constructing a portfolio, you want to
Mhm.
look at it holistically. You want to look at it, your entire financial picture, your assets. Where are your assets? Do you have physical commodities? Do you have gold, silver? Do you have real estate? And when you put all that together, you want to put certain percentages on each of those different asset classes so that your portfolio as a whole can weather the different economic circumstances and the different periods of markets that we have, whether it was like the bear market of COVID or the bull market recovery that we've seen in the past several years coming out of COVID.
All right. Where in market, of course, market does change over a period of time. When you look at the market today, where is it, and what are the projections for the next year or so?
Well, I will tell you, if I was able to see the future, I think we would all be rich, right? And then there's a
Yeah.
lot of market pundits that are out there that try to forecast. But objectively, just taking an objective view, when we
Hmm.
look at the markets today, we've had a great run up to the bull market. But when you look at the underlying run up, there's this term called the Magnificent Seven. And the Magnificent Seven are some of your largest companies that are out there that are weighted very heavily because of their market capitalization. And when you look at the Magnificent Seven, those are the Metas, the Amazon, the Alphabet, the Nvidia, the Apples. Those seven companies are the ones that have been really driving the market performance. And when you look at just the index of the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies in the U.S. capital markets, you
Hmm.
look at the other 493 companies, they have trailed the market. So that should give you a distinction that seven of the largest companies are what's driving the market, but the other 493 companies are underperforming. So what that means for the market, I think, right now the market is hinged on what does the Fed do next. We are very dependent on inflation data. And the
Hmm.
news is that we need to understand where does inflation end up? Do we end up in a period of stagflation, or does the Fed achieve their desired outcome of having a soft landing? And there's a lot of forecasters out there that the Fed may achieve a soft landing, but those that take a hawkish approach will always say that the Fed is always late to the game, similar to what we saw in 2022, where they were late to the game when inflation started to pick up, and they kept on insisting that inflation was it was just a period of increase in asset prices that were not going to be a long-term thing, which ended up playing in against their favor. I think, where we see the market go into the future, if the Fed decides to cut interest rates, whether it be at the end of the year or going into next year,
Hmm.
a lot of cash that has been parked on the sideline. I mean, think about it. You have, money market CDs that are paying 5% risk free. And we haven't seen those types of returns since 2000, 2008, 2009. And when you are for all the institutional investors and individual investors who live on income and those types of yields are unavailable, that money has to go somewhere, considering that inflation is still going to continue to chip away their purchasing power. So that's going to, and obviously, with that kind of cash on the sidelines, you're going to see it to go in the market, which is probably going to take the market even higher. But it's just a question of when and how that happens. But when it comes to looking at the longer term of the market, the saying goes this: it's not timing the market, but it's time in the market. So for
Hmm.
all the investors who are looking to invest, there's no right or wrong time to invest. You just want to diligently invest systematically and periodically.
Okay. When we look into the financial goals, and most of the people in the US, especially, they are well versed with like a 401k investment and other things. When we are looking at the Sharia compliant investments, is there any is there any discomfort in managing or balancing your religious beliefs and your financial goals?
Um, that is a personal question, right? For the Muslim themselves, right?
Mhm,
I mean, I am not the one to pass any judgment to anyone, but I will tell you. I remember when I was purchasing a home and I was working with a Muslim realtor. He told me, I was like, listen, if there's an opportunity to be able to purchase a home using Sharia compliant financing,
mhm,
why not? I mean, back then, yes, there wasn't solutions available that are out there, but there are solutions that are available now. And going back to the comment that you made around 401ks, the thing about 401ks, Kashif, is that any company that you work for, they're going to give you a menu of options. They're not going to allow you freely to invest, to be able to invest along with your values. But
mhm,
the one thing that I do want to make is that Islam is a very easy religion. It's, I think we as the followers of the religion, we tend to complicate it. There's a thing in Islamic finance, it's called purification. And what that is that, if there is any portion of your investments where there may be impurity to it, you take
mhm,
that, calculation of that impurity and you give it as sadaqah, right? So, there's many ways of navigating it. I think it just entirely brings to you as an individual, like, okay, you know what? If you know deep down inside that you want to invest alongside with your values and what you believe in, then
mhm.
of course you'll seek those options out. And then if those options are not available to you and you're only given a few hands to deal with, then you just take the approach that mostly aligns with you and try to stay away from those investments that are against your values. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, yes, definitely. And the concept of purification, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, not a religious scholar by any means,
Hmm.
but, with our deen teaches us, there is barakah in things that we do, right? And obviously, if we are blessed with wealth, there's barakah in it. And if we are growing that wealth and if there is, impurities, like for example, like our 401ks, right?
Hmm.
Particularly mine with the company that I used to work with. I have absolutely no idea what they could be investing in, right? Because I was investing in one mutual fund, which is a target date fund. But within the funds, right, it's a fund of funds. So
Hmm.
you'll have this hierarchy where it'll be a fund of funds, and then underneath it, there may be some funds that may be engaged in, I don't know, tobacco and the alcohol industry, or they may be engaged in the in financial in Western financial banking, right? And if there tends to be any interest in those investments, etc., it does require you to carve some time out to look underneath the hood to see like how much of those investments are against our values, and then based on that, you calculate, okay, well, if I had, 100%, portfolio where 5% of it was fixed income, well, then you take that 5% of whatever that return was, and in an effort to purify it, you give it in sadaqah because you know what, that wasn't an investment that was aligned with our values.
Okay, all right. Is there any could it be like any percentage of the income that you receive, or is there a certain percentage that you look at and then give it out as sadaqah?
I mean, again, it all depends on that person, right? Or that the investor themselves. Particularly me, if I see that I have earnings that are coming, 5% of the portfolio, which is entirely riba based, then you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I would just give that entire 5% away in sadaqah, right? I mean, there
Okay.
is barakah in itself, right, to give sadaqah anyway. So for me, it's like, I mean, I obviously have no control over it. If I did, then I would completely eliminate it from my portfolio. But if I can't, then, taking whatever is impure and give it to sadaqah, because, at the end of the day, not only did you purify the wealth and there's barakah in that, but then simultaneously you're giving in sadaqah and you're helping your fellow Muslims who may be in need.
Okay. All right. Would you be able to walk us through? Suppose many people I know that they have their 401ks or other like portfolios. Would you be able to walk us through like what are the steps that a Muslim needs to take in order to make sure that their investments are Sharia compliant?
Absolutely. So, what you want to do is take account of all your assets, right? And if you haven't done this exercise, creating a personal balance sheet, similar to what business owners do, they look at all their assets, they look at all their liabilities. And when you look at all the assets column, right, make sure you have your brokerage account there, your 401k, your pension, your whether it's equity, stock option awards with your employer, and so forth. And then really taking the time out, whether it be an hour or so forth, and just really, cross referencing your positions in your portfolio
Mhm.
through a Sharia compliant screener, and just literally taking the time to learn about what you hold. I've had so many conversations with investors where they just pick something or just let the system pick their investments for them, but they really have absolutely no idea of what it is that they're investing in. And then until you sit down with them and go through a full financial plan and review some of the underlying holdings,
Mhm.
it brings to light of okay, well, you know what, I was not aware that I was investing in this, and for me, investing with my values is very important to me. How do we make those adjustments? So my suggestion would be is to take account of all your assets in a financial plan, and then literally taking the time out to look underneath the hood of every single of those investments, and learning about what it is that you're investing in. Now, if that's something that may be of too cumbersome for you as an investor, there are professional resources that are out there that can
Mhm.
help do that for you, and you can offload that to somebody who can handle it for you.
Okay. All right. And in terms of the when we look at generally speaking the Sharia compliant assets that we have and non Sharia compliant, is there any financial consideration in terms of the returns that we make? Are the returns comparable, or is
Um,
it cost more to go for
um,
Sharia
uh,
compliant?
yeah, that's a great question, Kashif. I will tell you, some of at least in the experience that I've had, um, with the investment vehicles that are available from a Sharia compliant perspective, you can certainly create returns that are close to conventional finance investments, right? But I will tell you, conventional financial instruments will
Mhm.
always outpace Sharia compliant investing. There's no doubt about it. And that's just
By
because
how much in general?
I have seen, and it depends on the asset class, but particularly in equities, you're looking at almost 2 to 3 percentage points more.
Okay.
So if your portfolio did about 18%, you could expect 21, 22%, right, in conventional finance. But the thing is, you got it becomes a question of your own personal values, right? Do you want to invest alongside with your values and knowing that you have nothing to be worried about in terms of your own personal conscience, or do you want to invest in those industries? I mean, I will tell you, Sharia compliant, particularly in the newer generation, and when I say newer generation, like Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, it's not even looking at it from a religious perspective anymore. Um, you may have heard that there's this concept called ESG investing, and that's environmental, social, governance.
Mhm.
Those who are a little bit more aware of how their money is being invested, and a lot of Muslims are viewing it from that lens, where they're not, you're not investing in those industries that may be against just the general population's views.
All right. So is the you mentioned ESG. So for people who are like yourself, who are managing assets, or the companies that are providing information on Sharia compliant, is there a market to even reach out to non-Muslims who care about ESG?
Um, I have seen some interest from non-Muslims who are looking at Sharia compliant portfolios through the lens of ESG. Um, but on the same note, they're looking at it from the lens of ESG. And here's another thing. There has been a study, and everybody may have an opinion about it, but ESG portfolios tend to outperform regular portfolios because of companies, the underlying companies who are taking a socially responsible way of doing business. They tend to outperform. And you do see that demand from non-Muslims, but it's not holistically. It's just a piece of their portfolio that they're
Yep.
investing in that type of strategy.
Mhm.
But it's not like they're still investing in Western finance, right? But
Mhm.
Western finance, and that includes REBA and so forth. But they may not be particularly investing in Western financial institutions that may be backing some of the non-ESG companies.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Anything else that we have not covered that you would like to bring to the audience?
Um, I would say, I mean, going back to, when I first started in this business, where we were as Muslims, and the solutions that we were available to us in terms of investing.
Mhm.
Um, they're, considering the halal economy, and it continues to grow, and solutions still are coming into the marketplace. I think now more than ever, we have an opportunity, and those who want to grow their health who are very value conscious, do have the opportunity based on the solutions that are out there. And I would challenge all of our Muslim brothers and sisters to really take a look at the options that are available out there,
Mhm.
and not really trying to take the do-it-yourself approach, meaning using the tools that are out there that are Sharia compliant investing and putting portfolios together. I mean, if you have the time and day to do that, more power to you. But for those who want to grow their wealth, and really want to take a backseat approach and allow the investment managers to do the screening and do the management of the assets while they are buying and holding those investments, I mean, now you could put those portfolios together, and to be able to put it on autopilot. I mean, I will say, when you think about Warren Buffett, right? Warren Buffett says, for the average investor, if they don't have time to sit there and read their financial reports and really understand what kind of business that they're doing, they're better off sitting in a passive or an active fund,
Yep.
because more times than none, they will outperform. So I would just challenge all of the viewers, do take a look at the options that are available out there. There is a lot now, even from a fixed income perspective. There's a term called sukuk, and these are Islamic-backed bonds that are Sharia compliant, that give you that fixed income. And so yeah, and if anybody that is looking for resources to help guide them in that way, there's so many other professional resources that are out there, including myself, and welcome the opportunity to work with anybody to bring light to some of the stuff that I shared today.
All right. Yep. Thank you so much, Ahmed, for being here today and sharing all the nuggets related to Sharia compliant investment, and what the process everybody should be following, and how they can convert their current investments into Sharia compliant investments. So, thank you for being here and sharing all the knowledge and expertise that you have.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you. Assalamu
All
alaikum.
right. Walaikum salam.